Rory, I guess my first question for you really is your thoughts on his first squad, which he has picked. What were your thoughts on it?
It's nuts. I thought it was a nuts squad. Like, it's not that I think it's good or bad. It just didn't really make any sense to me. And I think a lot of people are being very kind to Tuchel and suggesting that he's getting things right. I'm not so sure I agree. I didn't particularly like the squad. I haven't particularly enjoyed the approach. Whilst I have been very critical of Gareth Southgate over the years, whilst I believe that Gareth Southgate has basically made a pig's ear of the job, and the reason that England haven't already won something is because of Gareth Southgate. His inability to be pragmatic, the way that he would always pick favourites, he would suggest that he would pick players based on form when he would always pick them based on reputation. You look at what happened in the most recent Euros when it was there for us. You look at the form of Anthony Gordon. He never got on the pitch. We were so lopsided. Kieran Trippier made it. Millions of reasons. We can do that, Ollie. I think that you and I, it's our responsibility to have that conversation. What I thought was weird is the fact that Thomas Tuchel has basically come in and eviscerated Gareth Southgate. I agree with the words. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. My issue is it Thomas Tuchel's place to come in and effectively go for the jugular of the previous manager that, whatever you think of him, did get England to a couple of finals.
Yeah, but and the other thing that is bizarre is it's not reflected in the squad that he's actually picked.
No, he's picked all the same.
He's picked all the same players. He's picked Jordan Henderson.
I can't believe he's brought Henderson back. I cannot believe that Kyle Walker is in the squad. I just think it's a mess. I really do think it's a mess.
Do you know what's funny about the Henderson one as well, Rory, is that if Henderson was absolutely tearing it up at Ajax, right, if he was like the best player in the Dutch league, even then, you know, it's not the same standard as where most of these players are coming from. We're talking about players who are playing in La Liga and the Premier League and the Bundesliga in the sense of Harry Kane. Jordan Henderson hasn't even really been playing for Ajax either. But, I mean, we only have to look at the Champions League to see the drop-off in quality. The Dutch champions, PSV, were beaten 9-3 on aggregate by Arsenal. That shows the level that has dropped in terms of the Dutch league, and that's the Henderson that you're bringing back in. I don't think you could have asked a single England fan, and one of them would have said, "Yeah, Jordan Henderson should be in this next squad." I just found it really, really bizarre with some of the players that he's picked, other than Dan Burn, which makes complete sense. So you won't be surprised to hear me say.
I think Dan Burn, you know, football being a meritocracy and all that, I think Dan Burn does deserve a selection. I have no issue with that. But the squad is basically incorrect. If we're totally honest, the squad that he's picked isn't the squad that he should have picked. Like, I know that he's the England manager. I understand that he has a far deeper understanding of football than I could ever dream to. But let's just tell it as it is. Jordan Henderson, you don't need to be brilliant at football management. You don't need to have an encyclopedic understanding of the game to know that Jordan Henderson should be nowhere near the squad.
Are we being slightly unfair given that we haven't even seen how he's going to set up yet? You know, haven't even seen England play. We haven't seen them kick a ball yet. Is it unfair to judge him immediately purely based on the players that he's picked? For, let's be honest, you know, a couple of games that England are definitely going to win. You know, are you going to reserve your judgment at all until we've actually seen England and the way that they are set up against Thomas Tuchel?
No, not really, because I don't think there's anything in that. I don't think we need to see how we're set up to know that Kyle Walker shouldn't be in the England squad. There's nothing that we can learn about England. So, for example, when we start playing, the referee blows a whistle in the game against Albania, and we go, "Oh, look, that's how he sets up." Whatever look what he's done. Whatever that is, it can't be Kyle Walker is pivotal to that. Because the thing is, it's incredibly foolish anyway, because Kyle Walker will not be pivotal to an England team going to America in 2026. So what's the point in persevering with it now? If ultimately Kyle Walker can't play for England when it really matters, why is he playing for England now?
Do you know what? The other one that really frustrated me, and I'm sure our colleague Max Scott, Forest fan, also was on this.
You can say Odoi.
No, well, not just Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White, who I know is now in the squad, but for him to be overlooked, and we've talked so much, you know, about, like you mentioned there, Southgate always, you know, almost treating it like a club, didn't he? You know, he treated it in the sense that he would have his old favourites, and you know, sometimes that worked, and a lot of times you'd have really decent players overlooked, and even in game you'd have them overlooked as well. You know, it always used to take him so long to bring on the likes of, you know, Cole Palmer, for instance, who actually scored the goal in the final.
Anthony Gordon sitting there when we were so desperately in need of a left winger.
So I'd love to see that change, but this first squad and the way it's been picked doesn't exactly fill me with encouragement.
No. And I think a lot of people are quite enthused with the way that he's spoken. I'm not. I'm genuinely not. I don't really get it. I don't know if going after Southgate is wise for the current England manager. He's not wrong, but the question would be, is it his place to say it? And I would argue it isn't.
Does he need? Yeah, exactly. Does he need to reflect on the past?
Whatever Tuchel thinks of that era, and a lot of it is true. Gareth Southgate did get England to the final of that tournament. It was underwhelming. It was ridiculous. It was poxy. It was poor. It was rubbish. I was there. but he did get to the final. So I don't know if it's a wise move for Thomas Tuchel to arrive and point out everything that he did wrong, because there's a massive chance that Tuchel won't get England to the final in 2026.
Yeah, then he's in a spot of bother. I want to pick out a couple of other names and get your thoughts on them as well. Phil Foden making the squad, and you can go back to the Gibbs-White argument.
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
Do you feel that Gibbs-White should have been in there ahead of Foden, given this season?
I can't believe that he wasn't. I can't believe that Callum Hudson-Odoi's not.
Yeah.
Surely, on some level, when you pick an England squad, is it not the easiest job in the world? You just look at the form players over the past, say, 6 months, and you pick all of the players that qualify to play for your nation. You pick the very best. Phil Foden doesn't deserve to be in the England squad. This time last year, I was saying that England should build a team around Phil Foden. He was Premier League Player of the Year, wasn't he? So you build a team around him. This year he's done nothing. His team have been desperately in need of him to succeed. His team have been desperately looking for a hero, and he's been missing. He was also woeful for England, absolutely woeful. You know, when he was pulling apart Gareth Southgate?
I think that was partly down to Southgate, though, to be fair to Foden. He was coming into that tournament as player of the season, and then he's pushed out to the left when we didn't have a left-footed left back.
Do you know what, Ollie?
That's got to be down to Southgate.
No, to a degree. To a degree, you're correct. But do you know where I would counter that a touch? I think it's always very interesting. You know when something goes wrong in football and you listen to the former pros, who I love listening to, like the icons that are now very prominent on YouTube and wherever else. You know, when you listen to them talk about situations, I find it so insightful. So, for example, you know when Dan Burn was being marked by Alexis McAllister, if you listen to any former pro worth listening to, they go, if I was on the pitch then, what I would have done is I would have gone, so if Tony Adams was on the pitch, Tony Adams would go, no, you off there, Bowles, you're on there, and you sort the problem out. And you heard Stephen Gerrard talking, you heard Jamie Carragher saying exactly the same thing would happen. If Jamie Carragher was on the pitch, after one, you go, no, that doesn't work, we're going to take some responsibility. Yeah, fine, the manager's there, but we are going to own it, take some responsibility. I think that it's a little bit cowardly, and you're being very generous to say Phil Foden and the players on the pitch, to go, Phil Foden was useless, utterly abject. Let's tell it as it is. Phil Foden let his country down in Germany. It's really kind of you to go, it wasn't his fault. Whose fault was it? It was the geezer sitting down over there. It was his fault.
I wanted Foden to take games by the scruff of the neck more, because we know that he can do that, because we've seen him do it for Manchester City. I agree with that. But at the same time, he is being set up to fail if he is put in that position.
But he's the best player in the league.
No matter if he has been playing... Yeah, but
he's the best player in the league.
The setup was completely wrong.
But he's the best player in the league, so take some responsibility, play the game, do what you want to do. Like, he needs to take some responsibility. You know, we're holding Cole Palmer at the moment to a very high ceiling, and that's correct, because he is an excellent player who should be held to a very high level of accountability. But you know, when it was all going wrong at Chelsea, like the ceiling was literally crumbling in, we had this one, like, jewel, this one diamond that would save us week in, week out. It was instinctive. Pochettino wasn't doing anything particular to Cole Palmer to allow that to happen. At the beginning of the season, Enzo Maresca wasn't doing anything particular to Cole Palmer. It was just what Cole Palmer was doing. And I think that Phil Foden, yeah, maybe 10% of why it didn't work for Foden was on Southgate. But 90% of it was on himself. And
do you know what? Just going back as well to his selection, you know, you only have to look at his England record, like you've just mentioned there, to know that, you know, he hasn't...
He doesn't deserve to play for England.
He hasn't turned up
playing
in a national shirt.
Playing for England is an honour,
yeah.
Right? It's a real honour, and that's why, for example, Ben White should never have the opportunity to do it again. Phil Foden doesn't deserve that honour at the moment.
Exactly. And the other thing is, you know, when you look at someone like Gibbs-White, who's come up through the youth systems, what kind of message does that send to him?
It's nonsense.
You know, I've made my way up throughout the national youth systems,
it's utter
and
nonsense.
yet you're still not going to pick me, despite the fact I am literally having the season of my life.
Yeah, and I'm going to drive.
Bizarre.
By the way,
bizarre.
To include, it's not only that; it's to include Jordan Henderson. Like it's not like there's no room in the squad. You know, if it was only Eberiche Eze and Cole Palmer, players like that, I would have always had Roger. I would have always had Gibbs White. But let's just pretend that let's just pretend that there wasn't room. You go, okay, someone's got to miss out. Jordan Henderson. Like, Jordan Henderson will not play for England again, if there's any kind of justice. Jordan Henderson will most certainly not play for England in America. So what are we wasting our time for?
I find so weird is that, you know, he's just back from injury, Adam Wharton, for Crystal Palace.
Playing really well.
Been brilliant Rory, I've been lucky enough to be there at, when they beat Villa 4-1. Adam Morton was the best player on the pitch. He was absolutely sensational. And I remember Oliver Glasner after the game kind of saying, look, he's brilliant, but we're just trying to manage his injury. As all managers do, he was like, it would be good if he wasn't picked for that. And then he gets picked for the under-21. So he could have...
I think what should have happened with Wharton is Wharton should have been in the first team and not played. I think that's the obvious thing, right? He goes, he suddenly becomes better friends with Declan Rice. He learns and watches Declan Rice train. He becomes a better player, but he doesn't actually have to put in any minutes. Yeah. I think it's so obvious. There are so many things that Thomas Tuchel is supposed to be doing. And the thing that I find so weird...
Do you think he's tried to be too clever with this?
Everyone's like going, oh, he's amazing. Like, when he was speaking today, wasn't he? And he's saying that, what was missing from England, it was excitement or whatever. Everyone's going, oh, this is amazing. Why is everybody so stupid? Like, why is everybody so easily pleased? This is baseline nonsense. And everybody's like, oh, it's amazing. It's actually brilliant. Like, at the time when England needed a new manager, I was viciously making the case for Eddie Howe. Desperately making the case for Eddie Howe. Nothing that has happened since... In fact, everything that has happened since that conversation has amplified my reasoning then. You're watching Eddie Howe win silverware. You're watching Thomas Tuchel, in my opinion, make a pig's ear of it. I'm obviously very glad it wasn't Eddie Howe. But yeah, I think as a your first squad is such a statement. I did find this really bizarre. And I mean, we've argued before, Rory, and I quite like the appointment. I don't mind it. I think it's interesting. That's because you're Judas.
I do think it's fairly... I'm not,
surname's Iscariot. Olly Iscariot.
Yeah, but you've still got that ridiculous view that it'd be cheating if we won with Tuchel.
I don't think it is.
That's mad.
I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
It's
not against the rules.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Genuinely, who wins? If England win the World Cup with a German manager, do England get the trophy or Germany?
England get the trophy.
Oh, right. I wasn't sure.
England
I was just
get
checking.
The trophy. So what? So Sweden would have got it if Sven had won it, would they?
That was my question.
That's my question. Absolutely ridiculous.